Welcome to this video tutorial on more advanced concepts regarding mask configurations and the exoSwitch constraint. What I'm going to demonstrate today is creating some masks to help rig this foot using mask configurations and the exoSwitch constraint. So what we have here is we have a basic kind of foot and ankle con. It kind of moves our skeleton around. We also have this ball controller here, which right now doesn't really do anything, but once we set it up in the constraint system, it's going to have some normal behavior to it. And then we have these purple kind of spheres here, and what these represent are pivot points along the foot. And we're going to create a constraint system out of all of these controllers to kind of show how you can really quickly and easily rig a foot using the system and have it very, very flexible using just one constraint. So in order to create our system, first thing we're going to do is go over to the exoSwitch constraint shelf, and we're going to use our interface over here, furthest to the left button, the green one, to kind of build our system. So right now the default is going to be to use the foot controller as our translation and rotation driver, and then we're going to add every other controller in this area here as driven objects. Let's go ahead and hit add. And notice that in the outliner we have a new constraint, and you can see here that our translation and rotation driver are the foot controller, and everybody else is in the driven nodes. So if I start to manipulate this system, you will see that if I grab our foot controller, rotate it, and translate it, it behaves very much like a normal exoSwitch constraint, multi-directional, to where now I can grab the toe or the heel area or kind of rock the foot from this pivot, and everything is coming along quite predictably, which is kind of neat. But here's the thing that we want to talk about. We really want to talk about setting up some masks so that we can create some effects that are very familiar to us, like foot roll. And in order to do that, right now, because the ball controller is part of the exoSwitch constraint, if I were to rotate this in Z, the whole foot construct is going to rotate from that pivot point, which might be exactly what I want in certain cases, but not necessarily in a walk cycle where I just want to do foot roll. So the neat thing about the mask configuration feature is that we can, in essence, re-rig this single constraint to perform numerous actions and rigging configurations that normally we would have to build extra hierarchies, extra constraints, and it becomes a little bit laborious. So let's create a foot roll aspect here to a mask, and so we're going to go back to our shelf, second green button from the left, create mask configurations. Let's go ahead and click that, and we have our interface here. So what we want to do is we want to mask out a number of different nodes when this particular controller does its rotation. And specifically, to keep things pretty simple, what we want to do is we don't want the toe controller to really go anywhere. Okay, we don't want that to move. We want to keep this kind of ball joint exactly where it's supposed to go. All right. So in order to do that, we know that we need to create, first thing, a new mask configuration, and we're going to call it ball roll. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say our driver, in this case, is our ball con. So over here in the driver node, we're going to find the ball controller. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that in this particular case, all of the channels are going to be used up. And the reason why is, if you remember in the introductory video, and if you didn't watch it, I'll explain it again, is that the normal operation for the exoSwitch constraint is like a parent constraint. So if we only mask rotation, the other objects are going to actually translate. So in order to get them to stay put and not have either rotation or translation affected, is to mask out all of these channels. So in our mask nodes, we want to mask out only the toe controller in this case. So let's find the toe controller, and then we're going to mask out all of its translation and rotation channels as well. So the mask configuration is ball roll. The moment you create a mask configuration, the constraint automatically sets it as the current mask configuration. If I select the constraint in the outliner, I can go over here to the channel box under current mask and notice that it's already set to ball roll. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we start rotating this guy, specifically in Z. Now you'll notice that the foot acts completely differently with this current mask configuration, because now the toe controller stays put even though the ball con is rotating. Okay? Even just to show you with translation, it's also staying exactly put where we want it to go. So here's the neat thing, is in the introductory video we also talked about showing different marking menu options so that we could switch configurations. So let me just do that real quick. If I hold down on the Mac the option and the right mouse button, I get set mask to none. So if I set the mask to none, now what I would expect to happen is that when I rotate this controller, the toe controller is going to follow, but from that new offset. So that's kind of a neat little feature that we have going, to where we can kind of change the effect of the toe controller just based on what mask we're running. So it's pretty neat to be able to switch back and forth the different mask configs. Okay, so let's create another mask configuration. And in this particular case, what we want to do is we're going to have the ability to have just the toe controller now move whenever this ball controller rotates, but everybody else is going to stay static. So we're just going to call that tip roll. Let's try this here. Tip roll. Okay. Now in this particular case, when the ball con rotates, okay, we want the tip controller to come with, or the toe controller to come with, but everybody else in the system needs to stay static. So again, our ball controller and all of its channels are going to affect everybody but that toe controller to be completely static. So now when we do this and we rotate, now we just get just the toe. So it's a complete reverse setup than what we had in our ball roll mask configuration. So we're really changing how the structure works together, all with the same constraint. I haven't added anything to the hierarchy. I haven't taken anything away from the hierarchy. All I've done is worked with the constraint and given it different mask configurations. So it's pretty neat. So if I let's kind of mess with the toe controller. Notice that when the toe controller is selected, there's no masks on the toe controller as the driver. So it's going to automatically convert over to operating as if it was in the none mask. So if I looked at this, I now have the none mask, which is default for this particular object, the ball roll or the tip roll, and I have the ability to kind of set the system over back to its rest, and that's particularly for the driver node at that particular time. So the masking configurations, you can really create some neat, powerful effects on a single rig with a single hierarchy and one constraint. Thanks for watching.